They say blood is thicker than water, but they never mention how it can drown you just as easily. I stood in my penthouse overlooking the Hudson River, watching the city lights dance on the water like scattered diamonds. The space was everything I'd worked for since graduating from Columbia 15 years ago. Floor-to-ceiling windows, Italian marble counters, and that view that still took my breath away every morning. But tonight, as I prepared for my brother Preston's 35th birthday party, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to shatter. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother, Catherine. "Don't forget to pick up the cake from Dominique Ansel, the one with the gold leaf. Preston specifically requested it." No please, no thank you. Just another command in an endless list of tasks I was expected to handle, because I was the responsible one, the successful one, the one who never said no. I'd already contributed $5,000 to the party fund, secured the exclusive rooftop venue at the press lounge through my connections, and arranged for the photographer who usually shot celebrities. All while Preston hadn't lifted a finger for his own celebration. But that was the pattern, wasn't it? Preston failed, and I fixed. Preston dreamed, and I paid. Preston charmed, and I worked. The party was supposed to celebrate not just his birthday, but also the launch of his latest startup venture, his fourth one in 3 years. Each previous failure had been spectacular, burning through investor money, most of it traced back to our father Richard's business connections, connections that I'd helped establish through years of networking in Manhattan's financial district. This new venture was something about revolutionary food delivery using drones. In New York City, where buildings blocked GPS signals and regulations made drone flights nearly impossible. But pointing out these obvious flaws would make me the unsupportive sister, the one who didn't believe in family. I arrived at the venue early, as always. The press lounge sat atop the Inc. 48 Hotel, and on this clear October evening, the view stretched from the Empire State Building to the Statue of Liberty. The space had been transformed with Edison bulb strings, cream roses, and gold accents everywhere. It looked expensive because it was expensive. My money, mostly. Catherine swept in wearing a Oscar de la Renta dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Meadow, darling, you look tired. Have you considered that new spa in the Hamptons? Although I suppose when you're working those banker hours, there's hardly time for self-care." She air-kissed my cheeks, her Chanel number. 5 overwhelming. "Where's your date?" "I didn't bring one, Mom." Her perfectly shaped eyebrows rose slightly. "Still?" "Meadow, you're 37. Mom had been clear about that, though somehow the actual legal documents had been less specific. Sarah had taken control with the swift efficiency of a hostile takeover, relegating me to support roles while she became the face of the company. I did the work. She took the meetings. I created the designs. She presented them to clients. That's when I heard my name mentioned in the great room. James Chen, a tech entrepreneur who'd made his fortune in sustainable building technology, was asking about me. "Where's your sister tonight?" "Isabella, right? I was hoping to talk to her about some of the technical innovations I noticed. The passive solar design is particularly impressive." I moved closer to hear Sarah's response. "Oh, Bella's around somewhere," she said dismissively. "Though honestly, James, you're giving her too much credit. She helped with some basic drafting, but the innovative elements were all part of my original concept. Bella's sweet, but she's more of a traditional draftsperson than a visionary. She's good at following directions." The words hit me like physical blows. I'd spent 6 months researching passive solar design, studying orientation, thermal mass, and glazing ratios. The system I'd designed would cut the lodge's heating costs by 60%, and Sarah was reducing all of that work to following directions. James looked skeptical. "Really?" Because I could swear I saw her name on some of the early permit applications as the lead architect. Sarah's laugh was like broken glass wrapped in silk. "Oh, that was just a clerical error. We try to make everyone feel included, but at the end of the day, there has to be a real leader." I couldn't listen anymore. I retreated to the kitchen, my hands shaking with rage. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through photos of my original sketches, dated and geotagged. The evolution of the design through dozens of iterations, each time-stamped. The CAD files with my digital signature. I had been documenting everything for years, partly out of professional habit and partly out of some deep instinct that told me I would need proof someday. When she led a group upstairs to show off the master suite with its copper-soaking tub positioned to frame a perfect view of Pyramid Peak, I finally reached my breaking point. That tub had been my idea, inspired by a ryokan I'd visited in Japan. I'd spent weeks sourcing the right copper artisan. Sarah had called it a waste of money until she saw the finished product. Then suddenly, it had been her idea. I found myself in my mother's old study, now Sarah's storage area. But I knew something Sarah didn't. Mom had built a hidden compartment behind the bookshelf. She'd shown it to me when I was 16, making me promise to keep it secret. Every woman needs a place that's entirely her own, she'd said. My fingers found the hidden latch. Inside, among Mom's jewelry and photo albums, was a manila envelope I'd never seen before. It was marked for Isabella, when the time is right, in my mother's handwriting. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a handwritten letter dated just a month before Mom's death, along with a USB drive and legal documents. The letter was brief, but devastating. My dearest Isabella, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and you've finally reached the point where you need to know the truth. I've watched Serafina manipulate and diminish you for years. The Aspen Ridge Lodge project was always meant to be yours. The USB drive contains video recordings of our discussions, including the one where you first described your vision. I've also included a copy of my real will, not the one Richard and Serafina had drawn up. In it, I leave the firm and the lodge property to you alone. I've filed a copy with my personal attorney, Margaret Chen in Denver. Don't let them steal your light anymore, my darling. All my love, Mom. I stood there in the dim light, the letter shaking in my hands. 5 years of being gaslit, minimized, and erased, when all along my mother had seen everything and tried to protect me. I plugged the USB drive into my phone. The first video started playing, and there was my mother, looking fragile but determined. "This is Ann Harper," she said. "Today is January 15th, 2020. I'm recording this to document a conversation I just had with my daughter Isabella about her vision for the Aspen Ridge Lodge project." The camera turned, and there I was, 5 years younger, explaining every element of the design. There were 6 videos total, each meticulously documenting different aspects and my role as its true creator. I heard footsteps and quickly closed the compartment, slipping the USB drive and documents into my jacket. The door opened, and there was Sarah, her perfect face flushed with champagne and triumph. "There you are," she said. "Hiding again? We have important guests, and you're skulking around like a ghost." "I was just looking for something," I said quietly. "Well, stop looking and start being useful. James Chen is asking technical questions I can't be bothered with. Go handle him, but don't contradict anything I've said. Remember, you work for me." Something in me snapped. Maybe it was the videos I'd just watched, or the letter in my pocket, but I found myself standing straighter. "Actually, Sarah, I don't work for you. We're supposed to be partners." She laughed. "Partners? You're barely an employee. You're more like an intern who never left. A charity case I keep around because Mom would have wanted me to. Mom wanted us both to inherit the firm." "Mom was sick," Sarah said coldly. "Her brain was affected by the cancer. Nothing she said in those last months counted." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Bella? After tonight, I think it's best if you work from home. Your presence here is confusing for clients." She swept out, leaving me alone. I made my decision. When I approached James Chen, he was standing alone on the deck, looking out at the lights of Aspen. Mr. Chen, I said quietly. You were asking about the passive solar design? His face lit up. Isabella! Yes, I'd love to hear about it. Your sister seemed a bit vague on the technical details. For 20 minutes, I explained every aspect of the system I'd designed. James listened intently, occasionally asking questions that showed he truly understood the complexity. This is brilliant, he said finally. You should be presenting at the Sustainable Building Conference. Before I could respond, Sarah appeared, her smile sharp as a blade. James! I hope my sister hasn't been boring you with technical details. On the contrary, James said, I found it fascinating. Isabella clearly has a deep understanding of sustainable design principles. Sarah's eyes flashed dangerously. Bella was just leaving, weren't you? Actually, I said, pulling my arm free. I'm feeling fine. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. I think you're confused, Bella. You're definitely not feeling well. Why don't you take a walk? It's 10 degrees outside, James said, concerned. And there's a blizzard warning. Bella loves the cold, Sarah said sweetly. Don't you, sis? I saw the game she was playing, the power move in front of a potential investor. You know what? I could use some air. But first, I have something to say. I turned to James. Mr. Chen, the passive solar system you're interested in? I designed it. Every calculation, every angle, every material choice. I also designed this entire lodge. Sarah is brilliant at marketing and networking, but she has never designed a single structure in her life. She couldn't read a blueprint if her life depended on it. The silence was deafening. James's eyes widened. Sarah's face went from pale to red to purple. You ungrateful little bitch, she hissed. How dare you? How dare I tell the truth? She dragged me to the kitchen. The moment we were alone, she slapped me hard across the face. You just destroyed everything, she snarled. Everything you stole, I corrected. She grabbed my portfolio and threw it into the fireplace. Years of work turned to ash in seconds. There, she said with satisfaction. Now it's your word against mine. Mom believed me, I said quietly. She documented everything. Sarah went very still. What are you talking about? She left videos. Videos of me explaining every aspect of the design, documents proving this was my project, a will that leaves everything to me. I pulled out my phone and played one of the videos. Sarah's face went white as she heard our mother's voice. Give me that, Sarah demanded, lunging for my phone. She was faster, stronger. She grabbed the phone and threw it against the wall, where it shattered. Then she found the USB drive and held it over the gas flame of the stove. No! I shouted. She shoved me backward. I stumbled and fell. By the time I got up, the USB drive was melting. You always were too sentimental, Sarah said. She pulled out her own phone. Dad? We have a problem. Bella's having a breakdown. You need to call Margaret Chen and make sure that other will never sees the light of day. I listened in horror as she efficiently destroyed my last hope. Now, she said, turning back to me. You're going to leave. Tonight. You're going to write a resignation letter citing mental health issues. If you don't, I'll make sure everyone knows you're unstable. She walked to the back door and opened it. The wind howled in, carrying stinging snow. Get out. Sarah, it's a blizzard. I could die out there. The shed has a heater. You can think about your choices. In the morning, if you're ready to sign the resignation letter, you can come back in. I stared at her, searching for any sign of humanity. There was nothing there but cold calculation. You want me to spend the night in the shed in a blizzard. I'm giving you a choice. Sign the papers and leave quietly, or face the consequences. She threw my light jacket at me. Get out! Now. I put on the inadequate jacket and walked out into the storm. The cold hit me like a physical assault. The shed was 50 yards away, barely visible through the chaos. I fought my way toward it, each step a battle. Behind me, I heard the door lock. The shed, when I reached it, was locked. Of course. The heater was inside, unreachable. I huddled against the wall, trying to conserve warmth. This was attempted murder, I realized. Sarah knew exactly what she was doing. I couldn't stay here. I'd be dead within hours. That's when I remembered something from the construction phase. The maintenance tunnel that ran under the lodge, connecting to the mechanical room. The entrance was hidden behind a ventilation grate on the north side. Fighting through the wind, I found the grate and worked the screws free with numb fingers. I crawled inside, pulling the grate back into place behind me. The tunnel was dark and cramped, but it was shelter. More importantly, it led to the mechanical room, which had its own entrance to the lodge. The mechanical room was warm, filled with the hum of the geothermal system I'd designed. There was an old laptop we used for diagnostics. I logged into my cloud storage, downloaded everything, and then did something else. I scheduled an email to be sent in exactly 1 week to every major architecture publication and potential investor, containing the videos, documents, and a detailed account of what had happened. If something happened to me, the truth would still come out. I waited in the mechanical room until the party ended, then emerged using my master key. The lodge was dark except for dying embers in the fireplace. I gathered what I needed: my laptop, backup drives, and a box from Mom's study containing physical copies of every document proving this was my design. I was almost at the front door when the lights flickered on. Sarah stood at the top of the stairs. "How?" was all she said. "You forgot about the maintenance tunnel. I designed it, remember?" She started down the stairs. "You're still leaving?" "No, I'm not." "Then you'll never work in this industry again." "Maybe. But I'll take you down with me. I have the videos, Sarah, multiple copies, cloud storage, scheduled emails. If anything happens to me, the whole world will know exactly what you are." Her face contorted with rage. "You wouldn't dare. It would destroy everything. Everything you built on my work. I'd rather see it all burn than let you steal one more thing from me." "What do you want?" she finally asked. "I want what's mine. The lodge, the recognition, the firm. You can't have it. Then we both lose everything. You're bluffing. You're too soft. You have 48 hours to decide. Transfer the lodge to my name, publicly acknowledge my role as architect, or I release everything." I walked out into the pre-dawn darkness. The storm had passed, leaving everything covered in pristine snow. I drove down to Aspen and checked into a boutique hotel. In my room, I composed an email to Margaret Chen, my mother's attorney in Denver. Then I called James Chen. "Isabella?" He sounded surprised. "Is everything all right?" I told him everything. The real story, my mother's death, Sarah's theft, the events of the previous night. I expected skepticism. Instead, I got angry silence. "She locked you out in a blizzard?" "She thought it would make me desperate enough to sign away my rights." "That's attempted murder. Send me the videos and documents. All of them. I have lawyers. We'll see what can be done." I did. Then I collapsed on the bed and fell into the deepest sleep I'd had in years. When I woke, it was dark again. My phone showed 17 missed calls from Sarah, 12 from my father, and 1 from Margaret Chen. I called Margaret back first. "Isabella," she said warmly, "I've been waiting for your call for 5 years. You have the will?" "I have the will, the video depositions, and evidence your mother compiled about Sarah's manipulation. What Sarah and your father did constitutes fraud. The will they probated was drawn up while your mother was heavily medicated. The one I have was created 6 months earlier, when she was completely lucid. So the lodge legally belongs to you, as does 70% of the firm. We spent hours building the case. By the time I left, I felt like I had an army at my back." On the drive back to Aspen, Sarah called. "I'll do it," she said without preamble. "I'll admit everything. I'll get help. I'll restructure the firm according to Mom's wishes." "Why the change of heart?" "Dad told me about the real will. We can't fight it. There's going to be a press conference tomorrow. 2 p.m. at the lodge. I'll tell everyone the truth. The next day, I stood at the back of the great room, watching as reporters and industry professionals gathered. Sarah stood at the podium, looking polished but tense. "Thank you all for coming," she began. "I have something important to share." She paused, looked directly at me, then continued. 5 years ago, when my mother died, I perpetrated a fraud. With my father's help, I suppressed her real will and substituted one that gave me control. I did this because I was jealous of my sister, Isabella, who inherited our mother's true talent while I inherited only ambition without ability. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Sarah continued, detailing every lie, every theft, every manipulation. It was brutal in its honesty. "Isabella," she said, looking at me, "would you please come up here?" I walked through the crowd. When I reached the podium, Sarah stepped aside. "The lodge is yours," she said quietly, handing me a folder. "The firm is yours. The recognition is yours. It always should have been." I took the folder, then did something that surprised both of us. I hugged her. She stiffened, then collapsed against me, sobbing. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." When we separated, I turned to face the crowd. "The Aspen Ridge Lodge was born from a vision I had while skiing the Highland Bowl," I began. "But it became reality through the work of many people, including my sister, who built the network that made construction possible. Harper and Associates will continue, restructured. We'll focus on sustainable design, on creating spaces that honor both the environment and the people who inhabit them." Afterwards, I found Sarah standing alone on the deck, looking at the mountains. "What now?" she asked. "Now you get help. Real help. And I run the firm. And after? After, we see. Maybe we find a way to work together. Maybe we don't. But we stop destroying each other." Over the next months, everything changed. The firm was restructured, with me as principal architect and Sarah, after completing treatment, returning as director of marketing. It was awkward, painful, but gradually we found a rhythm. The lodge became a destination for architecture students and sustainable design enthusiasts. James Chen became not just an investor, but a partner, helping us develop new technologies. Sarah and I were slowly finding our way back to something, if not sisterhood, then at least partnership. She'd started therapy, and the changes, while slow, were real. One evening, almost a year later, we were working late at the lodge. I was revising plans for a new project. Sarah was crafting the marketing campaign. "Remember when we were kids," she said suddenly, "and we'd build snow forts together? You always wanted yours to be bigger. But we'd connect them with tunnels, so we could visit each other. Yeah, maybe that's what we're doing now. Building separate forts but with tunnels between them." I looked up from my drawings. Maybe. Outside, snow began to fall. Somewhere in the mountains, wolves howled, but we were warm and safe inside the lodge I'd designed, working side by side, no longer predator and prey, but two women learning to coexist. 3 years after that night in the blizzard, the lodge won the American Institute of Architects Award for Sustainable Design. I stood on stage in New York, accepting the award, and thanked everyone who'd contributed. When I thanked Sarah for her marketing vision and her courage in telling the truth, she stood up in the audience, tears streaming, and applauded. The story could end there, with reconciliation and awards and hope. But life is messier. Some wounds never fully heal. They scar over, and we learn to work around them. Sarah still struggles with her need for control. I still struggle with trust. We both go to therapy, trying to untangle the knots our family tied in us. The firm thrives. We've built lodges and homes across the Mountain West, each pushing the boundaries of sustainable design. But the Aspen Ridge Lodge remains special. It's where I nearly died, and where I was reborn. It's where Sarah's empire crumbled, and where she began to rebuild herself as something more honest. We renamed it the Anne Harper Lodge, after our mother. Her portrait hangs in the great room, and sometimes I catch Sarah standing in front of it, talking quietly. I've forgiven Sarah, mostly. Not for her sake, but for mine. Carrying that anger was like carrying stones up a mountain. Eventually, you have to set it down. But I haven't forgotten. The memory of that night is carved into me now, part of my architecture. It's made me harder in some ways, softer in others. I speak up immediately when someone tries to diminish me, but I also recognize the fear behind such attempts. The wolves still howl at night. Their songs don't frighten me anymore. They remind me that I survived, that I found my way in from the cold. And sometimes, when the moon is bright and the snow is deep, Sarah and I stand together on the deck, listening to them. We don't talk during these moments. We just stand there, two sisters who nearly destroyed each other, grateful to be warm, to be inside, to be together despite everything. The Aspen Ridge Lodge stands as proof that you can crawl through the darkness and find light, that you can be locked out and find another way in, that you can nearly freeze to death and still choose warmth over vengeance. Most of all, it's evidence that sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, but construction. Building something so undeniably yours that no one can ever take it away again. I am Isabella Harper. I am an architect. I designed the Aspen Ridge Lodge, and I survived the night my sister tried to feed me to the wolves. The morning sun streams through the windows of our new house as I write this. Marcus is in the kitchen making coffee, humming off key like he does every morning. Our dog, a rescue pit bull named Hope, is sprawled across my feet under the desk. This is what love looks like. This is what family feels like. This is what I was missing all those years when I thought I had to earn affection through sacrifice and servitude. I'm 30 years old now, and I'm finally living my own life. Not the life my parents planned for me, not the life I thought I was supposed to want, but the life I chose for myself. It turns out that's the only life worth living. The note said simply, "She loved you best." She was right to. Preston didn't acknowledge her passing at all. After the funeral, Chloe and I went through Matilda's apartment. In her desk, I found a letter addressed to me, dated just a week before she died. "My dearest Meadow," it read. "If you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you're probably wondering if you did right by me. You did. You honored me not by being obedient or grateful, but by being strong. By refusing to let anyone, even family, especially family, diminish you. I watched my son fail you, and I carry guilt for not intervening sooner. But you saved yourself, and in doing so, you became the woman I always hoped you'd be. Not despite the pain, but because you transformed it into power. The money I'm leaving you is just money. The real inheritance is the knowledge that you are enough, just as you are. You always were. It just took a slap to wake you up to it. Live well, my darling girl. Live free. Live without apology. All my love, Grandma Matilda." I framed the letter. It sits on my desk next to a photo of Elena and David, a photo of Chloe and me laughing, and a photo of Matilda at her 90th birthday party, raising a glass of champagne with a wicked smile. The penthouse is different now. It's not just mine, it's ours. David's architectural drawings cover one wall. Elena's toys are everywhere. There's noise and chaos and mess and love. So much love. Sometimes, late at night, I stand on the terrace and think about that other life. The one where I gave Preston the penthouse. Where I kept writing checks and making excuses. Where I grew smaller and smaller until I disappeared entirely into their needs. In that life, I would have been surrounded by family, but utterly alone. I would have had their presence, but never their respect. I would have been needed, but never loved. Instead, I chose this life. The one where I'm occasionally called selfish by strangers on the internet who remember the video. The one where I have no contact with my birth family, but am surrounded by chosen family. The one where I'm teaching my daughter that no is a complete sentence and that love doesn't require sacrifice of self. The city lights still dance on the Hudson River like scattered diamonds. But now I know they're not just beautiful. They're proof that even in darkness, there's light. You just have to be brave enough to shine. That's what I learned from the slap heard round the internet. Not that my family was toxic, I'd always known that. Not that I deserved better, though I did. But that I had the power to choose better, to demand better, to be better. And so I did. And so I am. And so I will continue to be, every single day, in my penthouse that no one can take from me, in my life that I built with my own hands, in my happiness that I don't have to justify to anyone. They say blood is thicker than water. Sarah stood at the top of the stairs wearing a silk robe, looking like an avenging angel. How, was all she said. You forgot about the maintenance tunnel, I replied. I designed it, remember? Oh wait, according to you, you designed it. She started down the stairs. It doesn't matter. You're still leaving, and you're still signing that resignation. No, I said simply. I'm not. Then you'll never work in this industry again. I'll destroy you. Maybe, I admitted. But I'll take you down with me. I have the videos, Sarah. Multiple copies, cloud storage, scheduled emails. If anything happens to me, if I have any kind of accident, the whole world will know exactly what you are. Her face contorted with rage. You wouldn't dare. It would destroy the firm, Dad's reputation, everything. Everything you built on my work, I corrected. And yes, I would. I'd rather see it all burn than let you steal one more thing from me. We stood there, facing each other across the great room I'd designed to bring people together. The irony wasn't lost on me. What do you want? She finally asked. I want what's mine. The lodge, the recognition, the firm. You can't have it. Then we both lose everything. She laughed, bitter and sharp. You're bluffing. You're too soft, too sentimental. You'd never destroy Mom's legacy. Mom's legacy was supposed to be both of us working together, I said. You're the one who destroyed that. All I'm doing is honoring her real wishes. I turned to leave, then paused. You have 48 hours to decide. Transfer the lodge to my name, publicly acknowledge my role as the architect, or I release everything. You'll be destroying yourself too, she called after me. No one will want to work with someone who airs family drama in public. Maybe, I said, hand on the door handle. But at least I'll be destroying myself with the truth instead of living a lie. I walked out into the pre-dawn darkness. The storm had passed, leaving everything covered in pristine white snow. The mountains were just beginning to lighten with the approaching sunrise, and somewhere in the distance, I heard the wolves howling again. I drove down the mountain toward Aspen, my hands still shaking from cold and adrenaline. I had no idea what would happen next. Sarah might call my bluff. She might try to have me committed or discredited. She might even try something more permanent. But for the first time in 5 years, I felt free. The truth was out there, even if only between us for now. The secret was broken. The game had changed. I checked into a hotel in downtown Aspen, one of those boutique places that catered to wealthy skiers. The desk clerk gave my disheveled appearance a questioning look, but said nothing when my credit card cleared. Money, at least, wasn't an issue. Mom had left me enough to survive on, even if Sarah had made sure I'd never thrive. In my room, I opened my laptop and started composing a different email.